Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Greg Sloop, and it's time for Live at 5 on this Sunday, May 5th, 2024. Hope you've had a great Sunday. You've had a great day at Kannapolis Church of God. The Spirit moved in a powerful way. Many lives were touched. So thankful for the opportunity to be together and worship this morning. For those of you who are able to be with us live, great. Thank you that you came by. For those of you who may have watched us online, thank you as well for taking the time to be with us. Today, though, this afternoon for Live at 5, we're continuing our look at important or more well-known passages and stories from the Old Testament. We're up to Genesis chapter 21, beginning in verse 8, the story of Hagar and Ishmael basically being kind of banished from the house of Abraham. Let's read through the passage and we'll stop and do a little bit of exegesis and uh, explanation as we go through. So the child grew and was weaned. That's referring to Isaac, who had just been born in the first part of the chapter. And Abraham made a great feast on the same day that Isaac was weaned. Big celebration. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, scoffing. So there, Ishmael was scoffing, making fun of Isaac, if you will. Therefore, she said to Abraham, cast out this bondwoman and her son. Actually, this word scoffing also can be translated laughing, which wow is so ironic, because just in the chapters before it talked about how Sarah had laughed at God because he um, he promised her a son. Abraham laughed at God. How can I bear a child in my old age and my wife's old age? And here now, Ishmael is laughing at Isaac as if he was making fun of him. He was not able to reach the place where he could grasp the truth of Isaac being in the family. He thought he may be the only son. So Sarah said to Abraham, cast out this bondwoman and her son, for the son of this bondwoman shall not be heir with my son, namely with Isaac. And the matter was very displeasing or distressing in Abraham's sight because of his son. But God said to Abraham, do not let it be displeasing in your sight because of the lad or because of your bondwoman. Whatever Sarah has said to you, listen to her voice. For in Isaac your seed shall be called. Yet I will also make a nation of the son of the bondwoman, because he is your seed or your descendant. We've already talked about how getting ahead of God or trying to help God can get you in a lot of trouble, and it did with this, because Ishmael eventually gave birth to the Muslim faith down the line, and that is where most of the enmity and the strife is in the Middle East at this time between Israel and the Muslims. Verse 14, so Abraham rose early in the morning and took bread and a water bottle made of skins, or a skin of water, and putting it on her shoulder, he gave it and the boy to Hagar and sent her away. Then she departed and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. And the water in the skin was used up, and she placed the boy under one of the shrubs. Then she went and sat down across from him at a distance of about a bow shot. For she said to herself, let me not see the death of the boy. So she sat opposite him and lifted her voice and wept. In this moment, God began to see her, and it says in verse 17, and God heard the voice of the lad. Then the angel of God called to Hagar out of heaven and said to her, what ails you, Hagar? Fear not, for God has heard the voice of the lad where he is. Arise, lift up the lad, and hold him with your hand, for I will make him a great nation. Verse 19, then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. And she went and filled the skin with water and gave the lad a drink. So God was with the lad, and he grew and dwelt in the wilderness and became an archer. He dwelt in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took a wife for him from the land of Egypt. So this Egyptian maidservant that Sarah had in her service for several years, and who gave Abraham an actual son when Sarah could not. Once Sarah had a son, she totally felt threatened by, or as if they did not need to be around anymore. And she had Abraham send them away. This is a very compelling story, a story that a story that shows how consequences come along sometimes years after they are initially the act is initially committed. But in this story, we see nations come against one another. We see a budding rivalry, if you will. We see two nations that will be against one another for many years. God blessed Ishmael. It wasn't Ishmael's fault. Ishmael went a wrong direction eventually, or his descendants did down the road. But nevertheless, he didn't punish Ishmael or his descendants right away because they were of Abraham's lineage. But the perfect will of God was for God to see his promises to Abraham come to fruition through Isaac. And that's what happened. Um, Whenever you feel like you're being pushed out, whenever you feel like you're being sent somewhere else, don't worry, God may have a different plan for you. And if you try to stay within the confines of God's will and purpose for your life, then that plan will work out in the way that God intended, and it will be wonderful. And that's the word for today. Hope God blesses you richly. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. Good to see Gene Goodman and Sharon Noblet both on with us today. And whatever time of day or night you watch, or even if you haven't been identified by your name, thank you for being with us. It's our honor and privilege to have you, and I hope this blesses you as much as it blesses us. Spend time with God every day in the Word of God and prayer. You'll learn how to try to shoot for God's perfect will rather than just his permissive will. And you'll also find that that time with God is the greatest and most productive thing you'll do all day. Please know we love you and we're praying for you, and I look forward to seeing each of you again tomorrow, live at 5.